Hey everybody, my name is Ted Forbes and welcome back to another episode of The Art of Photography. Today we are talking about websites. And just to give you a little backlog here, if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen some of this week that I was talking about. The reason I wanted to talk about and address websites, I was doing some research this week and I was looking for some new photographers that I could find some inspiration from and just check people out, see if I can find some new work. And what I was doing was I was actually hitting websites of magazines and photography competitions to see if they had anybody featured I hadn't heard of. And, I'm finding people. And I was using Google to see if these people had their own portfolios online, their own website. One thing that was kind of surprising is there were a couple people that I found that were really good that didn't have websites at all, or I couldn't find any information on beyond that, which was interesting. Another one was that I would find a website by a really, really good photographer that had a really, really bad website. And I had made a snarky kind of tweet about this, and somebody had tweeted me back and said, well, hey, what is your criteria? What does make a good website? And, in all fairness, I think it's a totally fair question, and I think it's very much worth addressing on this show. I have a bunch of websites myself. I've got a portfolio website for my work. I've got a blog that I use for photography that I'm starting to do again this year. And I thought it might be good to talk about some of these things and some of this criteria and share it with you. Now, we have people who watch the show that are web developers who can probably code all this in their sleep, and this is probably less targeted towards them. But I'm going to do a couple episodes on this because I think it's really important. The thing that's really exciting to me about having technology, here you are watching this podcast online, but we're in this internet age where it's just very easy to share your work with a lot of people all over the world. And it really is kind of sad if you can't do that in a concise, well-designed, well-presented way. You spend all the time to make your work beautiful, and I think having a beautiful website is important. One of the things, back when I started, back when I had a freelance career in web development, I did a lot of websites for photographers and illustrators. And, things have progressed now to the point where you really don't have to go hire somebody and spend a bunch of money to do it anymore. There are free options for this. Sometimes there's a learning curve on stuff. There are paid options that are not that expensive, that you're paying for a great deal of convenience with. And I wanted to talk about some of those today and share that with you. Before I get cooking on this, I do want to talk about, they're basically, I made some notes. I've kind of broken this into three categories of websites for photography. You have, this is for personal work, a photographer's putting it out. You have photo sharing, and this includes things like Google+, Flickr, where there's a social network combined with it, and that's kind of its own thing. In fact, I do recommend, rather than having a bad website, just have a Flickr account to send people to. You're showing them the work, and that's the most important part. The other two categories would be a portfolio website. I've got a portfolio website. Mine is focus.nu. I'll put these links in the show notes, so if you go to theartofphotography.tv, I'll have them all listed. And then finally, there's blogs. That's the third category. So we got photo sharing, portfolio sites, and blogs or photo blogs. And that's kind of its own thing. So really what we're talking about today is portfolio websites specifically. And what makes a good one or a bad one? Well, the most important thing is your work that goes on there. So I think very minimal design is good. I think a portfolio can be over-designed. I don't see a lot of that when I'm surfing around, but every now and then you do, where a designer got a little too fancy with it, and it's just not showcasing the work like it should. It's distracting from it. So that's the good news, is from a design perspective, you need something that's clean and simple, and rather minimal, because you want the work to speak over the design of the website. So that is a criteria that I would use for a good website. I think some other criteria, one thing that I notice is a lot of bad flash use still. With some of these photographers, it's like these websites are 8 years old or 10 years old. It's just like going back to the yesteryear of the internet. The problems that I have with Flash is Flash came out as a way to make stuff move online. And believe me, I was one of the biggest Flash junkies there was back in the day when that came out. And it got me into web development, and I was really interested in that. And I used it for multimedia for years. I've gotten out of it in recent years on my web development work and multimedia work because it has some restrictions that just you don't need anymore. HTML has gotten to a point, especially using JavaScript and CSS, where you just don't need those things. Now, if you don't code, there's nothing wrong with picking your portfolio site to learn how to do that on. Just remember that it may take a while, and if you really are just getting your feet wet with this, sometimes it can take a year or two and to get a good product, and that's a long time to wait. And so if your photographer is on a budget and you want to learn how to code to save money, that may not be the best option. And you don't need to, because there are other options now. If you just want a free website, there are ways to do that online. I want to say before I get into mentioning some names here that I'm not getting sponsorship or kickbacks or anything on this episode. So this is all stuff that I've either had personal experience with, or I know people who have had pretty good reports on some of this stuff, and that's important to remember. This is just stuff, I'm throwing it out there because I'd recommend it. I'm not being paid to say it. Having said that, some of the free options that you can do, if you just need a one-page website with a couple photos, the easiest things to do are something like about.me or about.me or flavors.me. Those are very good. There's other options too. Obviously Flickr, those are definitely more photo sharing in nature. I did it really never went open source in the true sense, but I did a free software download that you can find, if you go look through my website, I'll link to it in the show notes, that I did called Satellite, which basically allows you to put all your stuff on Flickr, and then it just automatically pulls those photos and allows you to display them in a website. That may not be a great option because it's a couple years old and I need to fix it on some levels, and some people have reported trouble and I just haven't had time to get to it. That's an option too. There are other things too. There are some of the paid options have free accounts that you can go ahead and sign up for, and then you can get into, and they offer more when you pay for them later. Some of those, there's an interesting one called SmugMug, SMUGMUG.com, and SmugMug it's a really nice group of guys. I had some emails with some of them when they first started out, and I really like their intentions. Honestly, I think their design is just, I don't know, it's not quite my taste, so the look, but all that is customizable. But one thing that I really like that SmugMug do correctly is if you really want to get into archiving images, they have tie-ins with Amazon S3. So if you need to archive video work, for instance, or you need to archive raw files or something like that, SmugMug offers some services that'll work for that. They do cost a little bit of money extra, but it's pretty cheap, all considering. So SmugMug's a great option for something like that. A lot of people, I've never used it myself. My sister, who's a graphic designer, I recommend it to her and she loves it. But there's a website called Squarespace.com. And Squarespace does require, they have a free trial, but it is a paid service. And from all accounts that I hear, it's very good. It's easy to set up your own stuff. It's expandable. It's really easy and really nice to use. So that's certainly a good option too. One that I've used that I really liked, again, you don't do any design on these, you kind of pick a template and go, but there's it's called Cargo. I'm gonna have to put the link in the show notes. I forgot to look it up beforehand because it's not Cargo. I think it's cargocollective.com, but I will double check on the website. Cargo has some wonderful templates in there, very minimal in design, very nice though, very elegant. And they have a free service, so you can get on there and I think you can build a couple galleries out and just use it that way if you want. And then they have some options when you pay for it. When I paid for it, it was under $10 a month. It may have been $8 a month, something like that. And it's cheaper if you pay for it by the year. Very well worth it. My only deal is it's a long story. I wasn't really using it, so I decided to opt out. Now you move the URL somewhere else. We need to talk about URLs too. But anyway, Cargo Collective is wonderful. There's a lot of portfolio hosting services out there. My only advice is pick something that a lot of people use. Some people I've recommended, like actually Cargo and Squarespace too, are people who've gotten burned by somebody who's gone out of business. So be careful with that. But for not a lot of money, you can get your portfolio online very quickly. One thing that's really nice about having some of these online services is if you have what is called a content management system, and this is really important. A content management system is it's a special website you go to that's called the back end to your website, and it makes it easy to edit and create and move your content, and maybe even delete it if something's out of date. And it's really important to have some kind of content management system in place too, because it makes it easier for you to update your work, and that's very important. Because if your site's hard to do, if you're hand coding HTML, that's a huge daunting task that sometimes you won't be in the mood for. And just to put one image up and you have to code a whole page of HTML, forget it. That's just not going to be sustainable in the long run. On the open source end of things, or in other words free, there are a couple options as well. You could use something like WordPress. WordPress works great. WordPress is more of a blog, and it's going to behave like a blog. And I've always felt that when I've set portfolio websites up in WordPress, you can do it. And I love WordPress, believe me. But it always feels like I'm kind of hacking it into getting it to do what I want it to do. And there's nothing wrong with that, but notice there is a little bit of a learning curve and an issue there in trying to get it to not be a blog. Another one, if there's a little bit of a learning curve on, is Drupal. Drupal is a very awesome open source CMS. It's free to download, free to use, but it is a little bit bigger of a learning curve. And if you don't know PHP and you've never coded a website before, you're probably going to run into some trouble with this. Plus, you're going to have to get these on a server somehow, and that's where it's going to get a little difficult. But I think in that case, if you're a photographer, you have some good work, you're tight on cash, and you don't really have even maybe $8 a month to spend on a website, maybe one thing to do is to get a developer to help you out. Like find a friend or somebody who builds websites and say, hey, I'll do a trade out, I'll shoot photos in an event or your wedding or whatever if you'll build my website. Using resources like that and doing trade outs is an excellent way, one, of forming partnerships with people that hopefully you might work with later on down the line, and then two, just extending it out and doing a fair trade out. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So anyway, these are some of the options that I found. I want to do kind of a multi-part series on this because I want to talk about blogs as well. One thing that's really nice about content management systems, things like Drupal or WordPress, is that you can install them on your server and they are themable, is what they call it. And so basically what it does, without getting too tack-headed here, is a good content management system will separate your content from the design and from your back end where everything is processed. So they all live in different places. So literally, like WordPress, there's a whole community of open source and free themes out there. So if you need a quick design, which they call a theme, you can find a WordPress theme. Just Google around, you'll find them. They're on wordpress.org.com as well. And you install that in your site in a matter of seconds and change the whole layout. And that's pretty amazing. You can do that with Drupal too. And so that ability to theme things is really nice. The other thing that's nice too is I've had my websites, most of them, with the exception of the blog, have been up for a number of years. And you do get tired of the way things look after a while and you want to update it and spruce it up. And what's nice is being able to change that look without having to remake everything as far as content goes. So using something like that is very smart. I'm a big WordPress fan, I'm a big Drupal fan. Like I said, there is a learning curve and it's a little beyond the scope of this, but I do have another podcast that I haven't updated in a while on coding, and I'm about to do some on this. So if you're really interested, contact me or stay tuned and I'll talk about that some more here. The other things that I would recommend for everybody, no matter where you are on this, website or not, is you need to get a domain name. And that is a very professional way to do this, and I always recommend this to people. And what is a domain name? A domain name is the .com. It's the address you go to when you visit a website. So if I go search, I go to google.com, or my website, my main website is tedforbes.com. My portfolio, I got a different extension. So they come in like .coms, .nets, .orgs, and you can get those fairly cheaply. You don't really own them. You buy them. You buy them. You lease them is what you do. So basically, if you go somewhere like, I've had pretty good luck with GoDaddy, GoDaddy.com. Other people have had not so good luck. Another one that I've loved is hover.com, Hover, and you can go lease your domain names there. They're authorized registrars. And so I can go to one of those sites and let's say, back in the day I went and got tedforbes.com, and you pay for it for a number of years. You can renew it. So if you want to get it for a year to see if you want to still continue with it, and then you can renew it as time goes. One of the unfortunate things is with the .coms, sometimes what you want is already taken, and that's kind of a difficult thing to deal with. You might notice that I kind of have some weird names on some of mine, like my portfolio is focus.nu, and actually NU is a foreign country that has allowed international people or international buyers to lease their domain. They're a little more expensive, but I was able to get both Focus and Blur. So you could look into alternative domain names. They're a little more difficult because people won't remember them as well. A .com or a .net even is pretty easy to remember. So even if you're not ready to build your website right now, one thing I would recommend is go out there and spend $10, or if you're going to get a weird one, $30 or whatever it costs, and secure your domain name. That way you have it. Because what sucks is when you think about doing it and then you wait a couple months, then you go back and the domain name's taken and there's no way to get it because somebody else is using it. And so that's really hard, even if it's a personal name like tedforbes.com or something like that. If you're watching and your name is Ted Forbes, sorry. But anyway, go out there and get your domain name. Back when I started freelancing as a web designer, I would tell everybody that. Even if you don't want to use my services now, or you're not interested in having a website, just go get your domain name. And I knew several people that had theirs squatted by people who were looking to sell them to them. And that can get messy. So go get a domain name. Outside that, there are a lot of services like Cargo Collective I was talking about earlier. I think even About.me and Flavors.me, you can hook up that custom domain name to that site. So you never have to send them to something like about.me or something like that. Flickr, you can't. But anyway, you want to hook that domain name up to your website, and that's very important. Another thing worth considering too is if you are going to host your own content, meaning you're going to download WordPress and build something out of that, you do need a web host. And a hosting service, basically, they come in all kinds, shapes, flavors. I can tell you who I've used and who I've been really happy with. But essentially, it's a company that owns a bunch of computers. They have a whole farm of them. They're all hooked up to the internet. And you need them to be reliable. And you're just renting a little piece of that computer. They're going to hook it up. But you want something where the uptime is pretty consistent. You don't go to your website and it's down, obviously. Most of these people charge by the month. And they vary in degrees of pricing. I have experience. I've used Media Temple for years, MediaTemple.net. And I think they're really good. That's just my own personal thing. I've got a pretty fancy server with them now that allows me to put all my domain names into one box. But you can get just a basic shared account or what they call a grid account, and that works. Another one, again, you're going to get mixed opinions on all these, but there's also DreamHost.com, and DreamHost, I have an account with them still that I do testing on when I do software development, and they do fine. So there's people like that. GoDaddy will also host stuff. Anyway, you're going to need a web host. This starts getting a little more advanced and probably beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, and that's for people who are going to be interested in learning how to code or already know how to code or do their own thing. And if that's the case, you probably don't need me telling you need to buy a domain name and a server. But anyway, slice it. Everybody needs to at least consider the domain name. It could be your personal name. It could be the name of your photography studio. It could be something that's kind of weird. Try to make it something catchy that's not too long. That's my only criteria. So anyway, that's a little bit about websites today. There's free options, there's paid options, whatever you do. My big criteria is look for stuff that's elegantly designed, that's pretty. Or work with a designer if you're really going to be anal retentive about it and you're not sure how to do it yourself. But that's important. When I say something's, like, in my opinion, a bad website, that's the criteria I'm talking about. Usually something that's poorly designed, something that's coded improperly, it breaks. And God knows we all make mistakes, and I have things that are broken on my websites from time to time. But when it really interferes with the actual experience of being on the website, it's one thing to say, oh, there's an image missing, or this is misspelled, or whatever. But it's another thing when you actually can't use the website, and that's bad. And then the third, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think uses of Flash. It's time to go. It's time to move on. You don't need it. You can build wonderful websites without it, unless you really know what you're doing. And even then, I don't know that it's worth the time to code all of it. So anyway, all that being said, those are some ideas, some things to think about. I will apologize for the noise today outside the window, and the studio is moving around. I'm actually getting ready to move at the end of the month, which will explain some of the lack of updates that I've done lately. But it's exciting, new studio. Same building, but anyway, it's going to be cool. Anyway, once again, this has been The Art of Photography. Don't forget to follow me on the Twitter. My handle is twitter.com/TedForbes. You can find me on all most social media networks and show updates, or for show updates and things like that. Remember, the website for the podcast is theartofphotography.tv. We're also on YouTube and a bunch of other things. So anyway, drop me a line if you got any questions. I want to talk about photo blogs a little bit, and we'll do a bunch of these this week because they're easy to set up and do. And the next one I'll actually show you some stuff on the computer when we get into blogging. But do consider doing a website and thinking about that and getting your head around it, and find something that works for you and put it up and become famous, and then send me lots of money when you have it later because I inspired you or something. Anyway, thanks everybody. This has been The Art of Photography, and thank you for watching.